All right. Take two. Sorry. What's up, guys? John Tentes here, Cutternation Baseball. We're at number 92. I wish I hit 92 yesterday. That would have been the highlight of the day. But I did not. I got close. But anyway, first, website's going great. Apparel's doing awesome. We got hats still in stock if you want some. Shirts. We're releasing a new shirt coming up. I'm pretty excited about. We've actually had the design on deck for a little while, but we should be getting that here soon. So we're excited. So check the website for that. But without further ado, for the second time, the champion of the debate against Cutternation, Dustin Pease. What's up, buddy? How you doing?
Not too bad, guys. Good to see you guys again. And yeah, I'm not sure we would call it champion. It was more of like a, hey, let's have a little discussion. I think we were all kind of like a little bit taken off guard by how it was going to go. But no, it was all good stuff.
It was. I did tell Kenny I really like it. I think it's a great idea, and I think it's just I think if he can keep refining it, I would like to do. He offered us to go on use their platform, and I definitely want to do that. John and I haven't talked about it very much, but yeah, that was fun, a lot of fun. So
yeah, I agree. I was talking on our own podcast about it. I mean, I feel like it has a lot of potential to be like really, really good in terms of like the way people can kind of put their own content out and the way you can kind of like create like a creative way to educate, everybody's own viewpoints. I think it is kind of clever how he's putting it together. So hopefully it kind of keeps ironing itself out.
Yeah, I totally agree. The conversations between the trainers sound to be like the most valuable in the trenches to the people, and a lot of our clients that follow our podcast and they're always saying, man, that was so educational. I had no idea. We were talking about San Diego area earlier, and how we just don't see a giant. There's not a giant facility. There's not like a DBAT or something like that here, and it's just rather intriguing that that's not here yet. So, but anyway, without further ado, why don't you introduce yourself to our audience, besides the fact that you beat us?
Well, we'll go with a quote unquote on that one.
Yeah, for sure.
No, my name's Dustin Pease. I created Location Nation a few years back, but I basically was a left-handed pitcher. I went on to play Division I baseball for Mount St. Mary's University in the Northeast Conference. It's a smaller Division I out here on the East Coast, here in Maryland. And from there, I was unfortunate. Did not get drafted. Went on to go play some indie ball for 4 years and tried to continue my career that way. And from that point, I got picked up from San Diego by the Padres and kind of rounded out my career, finishing it with them, making it up to AA as a left-handed pitcher. So kind of had a career with that. And then after baseball was over, I went on to go coach back in my alma mater. So I got to go back and be a pitching coach at Mount St. Mary's for a couple of years and worked with the pitching staff there. And that's kind of how Location Nation kind of started getting created in my mind. I kind of like started seeing the interaction with pitchers and the industry and the culture of the game, and then their ability to produce outs. And there's just that like kind of constant internal struggle with where they were mentally. And I just feel like I wasn't the only coach out there that was dealing with this. Trying to develop players, trying to develop them from like a measurable standpoint, but also trying to produce outs. It's like a tricky thing to kind of manage both ends. So I felt like I wanted to kind of had a bigger message, and I wanted to write a book and got that book written. Kind of was fortunate enough to build a pretty decent social media following, and here we are today.
Yeah, totally. I was actually looking just on your I just YouTube to see if I could show everybody what your mechanics look like, because for what I've I don't know if I created this or where I heard it, but it doesn't matter. You're a unicorn. You're a left-handed like that. There's not a whole lot of you out there.
Left-handed
you're
what?
a rare breed. Left-handed submariner.
Oh.
He's coming from down under, little deception, little stuff. So I don't know if you know this, but I threw sub a year in college. So no offense to your career, but I hated it. But I just never threw in a meaningful game. And it was like this weird experiment where a guy with us got the yips, and they were trying to teach him how to do a shortstop throw. And I was like, grew up doing that my whole life. And then I got baited into, yeah, you should do that. And then I just like never threw in games. I was like, what the heck? This is a terrible decision. Anyway, So from your perspective, right, like that transition is interesting to me, and I feel like there's some meat there for our audience. How about the history of when did you convert? Because not everybody starts down there, right? Like I've never heard of anybody starting down there.
Yeah, no, like because I give instruction, so I don't sit there and be like, oh, we're gonna do sidearm, like that's just what we're gonna do. No, like I mean, and again, my slot was identified, I guess, differently by lots of different scouts. So it was anything from low 3/4 to submarine, and it just depends on what they wanted to list me at that day. But going back to where it all began, I mean, I started taking pitching lessons in 8th grade, and I made the transition towards the end of that year. So it was still like within that same year, and it's an interesting story because I'm not a very big guy, so I'm not very physically intimidating. I was 5'8" when I started taking lessons. I was a scrawny dude. My family wasn't very big. I didn't think I was going to get very big. The doctor said I probably wasn't going to grow a lot. I loved pitching. I loved baseball. And I knew really at a young age, I just wanted to fully commit to pitching. And I wanted to be a big leaguer. I think that was my ultimate goal. So my pitching coach happened to be the batting practice thrower / bullpen catcher for the Orioles. His name was Tom Vaith. He was still a coach in independent ball. That's kind of how I got my indie ball opportunity. But he was obviously when you're working with somebody who's like at the major league level, and obviously he wasn't a player, but he's around that type of culture all the time. He kind of saw the way the game was kind of shifting towards like some specialty type routes and like trying to just lefties come in, getting guys out. And the deceptive factor, and for me, I was like, I gotta stand out. Like there has to be something that I do that will make me stand out more than everyone else. And I wasn't going to be the guy that throws 96. I just knew I wasn't going to be able to reach that speed, or I felt like I wasn't going to be able to reach that speed. So I needed to do something different. And I know I'm super young. I'm in like 8th, 9th grade. I'm like making this decision. He kind of made it seem like it was a big decision, but I decided to do it. So I was like a freshman in high school, like fully committed to like throwing sidearm. And
wow,
yeah,
that's so early.
Yeah,
so I mean, at least in the stories that I've heard, right? Because the traditional sidearm guy couldn't cut it over the top, right? And he may make it into college, and then that transition. So you're doing it that much earlier, which would make sense. I mean, like knowing what we know now about time spent inside of the skill, I'm sure that was a massive advantage for you as you went through, right? Like you got to work out some bugs, and no offense to the high school game, but in a low risk situation, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree. I was like that guy. We're about the same age. I was like totally obsessed with the mechanical aspect of it, like what I was trying to create and like the aesthetic that we wanted it to look like. And I'm out there with my camcorder with the flip thing out, like doing 5 pitches. Going back, looking at it, recording 5 pitches again. I'm like, man, if I had a cell phone back then, it would have been so much more efficient.
Oh man, technology comes
Kids
so
don't know
far.
how to do these days.
They don't. Yeah. My dad, when I was figuring it out, my dad was started on the video thing, and I just remember being like, all right, there's this tape. I got this little tape now, right? What do I do with this? So that's super interesting. So you go through college, right? Like, can you explain your role in college? Like, as far as, like you said, you were thinking deception, situational. I find that part of how the game is when you have a unicorn like yourself and you're going to be set up against left-handers. What's your plan? I know my dog is going crazy right now.
Oh, I don't hear her, but you keep saying unicorn. I'm laughing at unicorn.
Oh, sorry. Well, I mean, it's true. I mean, I don't know. I was all in college with, the twos, the unicorns, all the fun stuff. And so like when playing in a Division II, you see some weird things in Division II, like you see some crazy mechanics and stuff. So you were to pop out of that, I'd be like, oh, of course,
Well, again, but that's kind of like the whole idea I was going for anyway. I was like, I need to stand out because there's, when we're looking back at like the end of my career, it was like pretty much how I would have envisioned it. I'm standing around like a bunch of dudes that look like trees, 6'4", 6'5", and I'm like the little dude there that somehow made it to that level. There, it was by design. I needed to stand out. So,
I think that strategy of the game is so important. By the way, if we were to just transplant you into Major League Baseball, I think it would just be so good. You can see it in the KBO where they have all these dudes that throw like, they'll start a guy on purpose. It's a lefty throwing like 80, and he'll just come out cruising, and he's just like flipping 60s and 65s and 70s up there, and then all of a sudden they bring in a Dominican dude, and he's throwing 100, and you just see everybody so late the rest of the game.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we were talking speed differential in that, and I just find that so intriguing, you know, of like, because that's the game. That's the game. It's like, of course, we'd all love to throw 100, but for those that can't, like, we got to make it dance.
Yeah. Yeah.
How old were you when you made your debut? And John, tell Cutter to F off.
All right, hold on. Go ahead.
Well, how old were you when you made your debut?
Debut with who?
Padres.
So San Diego. Well, so again, just minor. I didn't make it to the major leagues, but yeah. So with San Diego.
Sorry, I thought you said you did go. Okay, that's right. You
No.
just got picked up, right? That's right. Right.
Yeah. So
Okay.
like elsewhere, so I think that was 2011. They signed me from Wichita, which was in the American Association.
Got it.
Oh, I looked at that. I remember to ask you a question. The Lowy brothers. Did you play with the Lowies?
Oh my gosh, it sounds so. Yes. I played with them. I played with one of them. He was in Windy City. The other one, that guy.
That was Josh. He's in Mexico right now. Like he's
Really?
He's El Rey in Mexico. So he and I grew up together. We played in the same Little League. We played catch together, both of them. And then his older brother, by minutes, his twin brother played in the Braves organization for a little bit, and he threw gas too.
One of the, I can't remember what pitch it was, and I actually can't remember what I think it was. I'm not sure who was with me in Windy City. He had a nasty breaking ball. I can't remember if it was a slider
Josh,
or a
12, 5'10", banger. Yeah.
Hammer. Yeah. It was
he's a legend down there. He's got a nickname. He's on the, he's big league. He's El Rey. That's what they call him. El Rey Lowy.
Hey, that's awesome.
It was crazy to see show up to the stadium when we played them on the road, and he's literally like on the banner, and I'm like, bro, like you me and your brother in the outfield at 12, like it's crazy to come back to this full circle,
That's crazy.
Anyway,
that's awesome to hear he's still playing. Wow.
Yeah, for sure. Small world, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Baseball world definitely seems to connect all of us there.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I want to get a little bit more into your business and like, what the philosophy is there, and try to get into some training movement ideas and see what your plan is. I may have to go yell at my dog again real quick. But anyway, Cass, can you take over with me on that real quick?
Yeah, I actually have something pretty specific you triggered earlier, just talking about having the pitching coach experience. That alone, I think there's a lot of guys that are in the cage, and then there's a lot of coaches on the field, and they think that those are different things. And I don't think they're different at all. And I think that divide is actually really unhelpful for a lot of people. And I think it's becoming more obvious that pitching side is just by nature, it seems, we're a lot more open to communication, where even Kenny was talking about getting these hitting guys together is almost impossible. Like, they're going to kill each other. Yeah, and it's crazy. But, I'm curious how much that influences, that experience of having to go on the field, and how much in the training that is, right? Because in all fairness, this is the part that John and I, like, that's the one thing that I have on you. And I never bring it up. I don't even think about it, but I think that's a perspective that I want to create more space in my training. And it looks weird in training settings, but I know it's applicable to on the field stuff. Do you know what I mean? And like, maintaining that narrative is important to me. So anyway, I'm curious your thoughts on that in your training.
So, I mean, yeah, I guess when you look at like how we kind of fully develop people, I mean, I kind of tend to side on the holistic side. We don't do like a lot of crazy different things with the stuff that's going on. I'm not saying everything out there is crazy. We just kind of tend towards more like long toss, J bands, real elaborate type of, I guess, just getting loose, like very, very easy stuff, like plyometric stuff, getting loose with things like that. We do have pre and post routines. We don't beat a dead horse with them. I love long toss because I feel like it's very, It's one of the few things that allows you to continually target through intensity increments. Even though the distances aren't still as representative of pitching, you can still target while using more intensity. So, we do a lot of long toss there, but the transitional aspect of pitching and I guess what you would consider development, I think that's like the main. You're right. You hit the nail on the head because like I think when I'm on social media, we got a lot of guys who just love to study like biomechanics and throwing, and they like to study like how guys move and how they're using energy, and that's all fine. And some guys are like really good at that, like they're like excellent at that, but they might not have any idea how to pitch to a certain guy or like how to like change speeds or like just operate in the game. Like that's
when to bring in a unicorn.
Sure. That, and that's okay. Like that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. And I think that's something that, I mean, I might come off in a bad way sometimes, like, but I feel like lately I've been trying to like just put out there, like, listen, it's okay if all you want to study is biomechanics. Some of the coolest biomechanics I've met have admitted that like, but some certain types of biomechanics, like they just can't explain why this guy's putting out that much output. He's not moving the way that they would say is efficient. So it's like even they contradict themselves within like even what they're doing, and it's just like I like that. I like when guys are questioning a lot of things that they're doing because it just at least reminds you that things are being grounded. But for me, I just like to just do action. I guess simply put, I try to just want to do action, like long toss. If you want to throw harder, you got to throw more. You got to throw with more frequency. You got to get a lot of workload, a lot of distance. You got a lot more pitches on the mound. Like just do more of the actual task that you want to do. So like more throwing, more long toss, more flat grounds, more bullpens, and then you can change the environment or the constraints that you're putting in those bullpens. You can make it more pressure oriented. You can make it more representative. You can bring in a batter. You can do an L screen. You can create crowd noise. Like all that stuff is kind of cool with getting guys to translate all their throwing or maybe biomechanics into that functional type of way. So that might have seemed like a lot, but these are kind of things. That's just kind of the way that I'm thinking, like with how we kind of translate guys. But I don't pitch. I'm not a pitching coach anymore. Like I'm actually back in the cage. We're developing.
Yeah, us too. Oh shit, he got phone call probably. And we should just tell him to stay back from the mic. He sounds really good away from his mic. I was gonna assuming we can just wait for him to come back in. Yeah, so if you follow him on Twitter, he talks a lot about he's defending the importance of like, we always talk about skill acquisition. It's just volume, it's volume, it's volume. And then he's just really good at breaking that down and talking about, when we have skill acquisition, this is how the brain operates, right? This is kind of the natural instinct that your body has. And if you're not paying attention to that and measuring your accuracy on a nonstop basis, it has huge, poor implications. And so I couldn't agree more. And I think one of the things that I find myself thinking about, considering his argument is there are people who do run and guns and it's just like the guys who chase bat speed, right? It's like you have to understand the movement in order to create bat speed authentically, right? You can just spin and create a ton of bat speed. That doesn't help you hit the ball. Right. And you can do the same exact thing throwing. You can get really, really rotational and, it's not going to feel very good, but you're going to light up the gun. And this is, you see this in the North so much more, right? Because it's less common for them to throw as much as the kids down south. Right. And so you see them show up to a showcase on the weekend, boom, blow it out. Okay. And then they don't throw until the next showcase. And that's like, they're kind of playing catch, but they're not like feeding the arm. They're not doing the things that, he talks about the importance of long toss. Like this is, you build the arm by being a thrower all of the time. It has to be who you are. And it probably can just be summed up with that, and so to shoot off and to just keep going with things. This is why I'm so excited about the synapse. Right. This is why I'm so excited about like pitch logic and synapse. those two things at the field, like, that's crazy. And I don't know how much I'm supposed to talk about it, but who cares right now? Like, it's just such a good thing, because I can put it anywhere, right? And so I can put myself in those positions, and the better we get at training, the less we're asking of baseball players to do things that are not baseball oriented. You know what I mean? Be a baseball player through and through and through. Train yourself to be that, and that's going to turn you, like you talked about. You talked about a holistic approach. That's going to make you make sure that you're functioning, right? Like, but I don't know. I've just been seeing a lot of Instagram videos and just like, dude, kids are jacked. Juniors and seniors in high school right now that are listening to the people, they're huge. And it's good because like that qualifies you into that. Yeah, you just caught me in the middle of talking about how big a lot of high school athletes are. So you see two things going on. You see the kids. I was working in a very affluent community in Minnesota. Do you hear us, Dustin?
Yep.
John?
Yeah. Dustin, if you could
we're all
just
good.
back away from the mic just a tad. You were sounding real good right there. Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I get jacked up too.
Yeah. Anyway, we're just talking about, I was just kind of telling the audience a little bit about how I've seen your narrative, and it's made me think about like, okay, yes, I totally agree. I think people are chasing things like bat speed, and I think people like up in Minnesota, I see a lot of these kids don't actually have a throwing program, but they show up to these showcases to throw as hard as they possibly can in the game. They really don't care if they get people out. And the way that they move to achieve those velocities is not how they're going to move when they try to then go pitch in that Wednesday night game, or whatever it is. So I totally get that argument. And then I was just also talking about how I know some kids like juniors and seniors in high school that have been listening to the people that are saying get huge, the Dr. Heenans of the world. Who I'm just saying I'm noticing these kids are huge, right? And sometimes you see like the kids will, that kid gained weight a little bit too fast. Wonder how he's going to react to that, and like the balance of it all. But I think the positive is kids are understanding to take this stuff seriously at a young age, and then it's our responsibility to make sure that like they're getting good information and we're putting it out there, because I don't know that you need to look like a middle linebacker. And that doesn't, that's changed. I've changed my tune on that, right? Because I want to be like a freaking cat. I want to be a ninja, right? And it's both, right? It's both. The strong guy says that, right? I've achieved the strength. You know what I mean?
I talk about that a lot. I mean, I talk about, I was in the weight room. Like I always did what was asked of me. I was in SNA like through high school, like speed and agility. I was in the weight room. Like I always did what was asked of me, but I never truly felt like the weight room made me good at throwing or made me a good thrower and never made me a good pitcher. It was just something that made me physically able. I mean, I was already physically able. I felt like I had everything I needed without the weight room. And that's just my opinion. And that's because that's just my experience. And I try to like ground myself on that as much as I can and not speak too much on it, because a lot of people love the weight room, and I got this. One of my best friends in life is that one of the trainers is the trainer I met in San Diego. And we would have this discussion all the time. I'm like, I didn't get here because I got strong. I got here because I was good at pitching. I got here because all I did was throw. I threw a lot. I threw more than everyone else. While everybody else is in the weight room, I was throwing. Like
me too.
That's why I felt like I side so much on that aspect of it, because I feel like that's what's most important. And it might seem kind of weird, but I mean, I think about like the Dominicans or like the Hispanic culture, like, and they don't have all that access, and all they have is a baseball or whatever it is that they're throwing, and they do that all the time. And you're like, wow, is this dude so small, hucking the ball so fast, so hard? It's like, well, there's that passion, there's that emotion, there's that drive to get away from where he is, and he's going to go do it all the time. And there's no pitch counts, there's no whatever. It's just go out there and tell your body what you need it to do a lot, or frequently, or often. And yeah, I don't know. I just, again, I'm more on the holistic side. I just feel like if you want to do action better, go do that action. Optimize your body mentally, cognitively, neurally to do that action faster. Just like you said, like a cat. Like you want to move quick, you want to move fast, and your body will fire those circuits faster. The conduction velocity, the way that we move. Like I kind of like I said when I was young, I was like, I'm never gonna throw 95. Looking back, like if I knew what I knew now, I probably would give myself a chance to. If I really, really knew that maybe I could have thrown from like maybe a higher slot, and I did. Later in life, I hit 92 in a bullpen at a higher arm slot. I didn't know that would have happened. I would have never guessed that. Nobody ever knew I threw that speed. I very rarely talk about it. But what could have been? I don't know. I knew my arm didn't feel very good, and it wasn't a strike. But it's just things like that. I don't know. Sorry, I go on tangents sometimes, but no, I love what you said, man. Quick.
Join the club.
Yeah.
Tangents have the best information.
Yeah.
I mean, so go, John.
No, I was going to say I find that just super interesting because I remember the debate in my head after I dropped down, and then I abandoned it because like they released me. So I was like, well, what in the world, and so I went back for a summer and tried to figure it out, and I did both. Actually threw over the top and summer. This whole system where like the catcher's like, all right, if you put a 1 down first, that means over the top. Put a 2 down second, it means down low. That way we knew, because I was like, all right, I'm gonna throw every pitch I can from every arm slot, and I just want the catcher to be ready for whatever I'm gonna do. So I'm like stepping across my body and just ripping frisbees, just doing everything I possibly can to get the most break. And then the more I divulged in that, I just started realizing like, man, this is just like too hard to keep my skills up with all of these. I need to condense it down, and so that I find that it's hilarious if you would have known, right? If you'd have started back at the beginning of your pro career, it was like if I just throw a heater from here and I'm like at 90 and then I drop down and come to this, like that's full David Cohn, if you remember him from the the late 80s, early 90s. Like he was. Dude, him, El Duque, like there's so many pitchers, Livan Hernandez from back in the day that were like, you know what? Like the ephus was like a normal thing. Like people were like, sure, here you go, Barry Bonds. Like we know you hit almost 400 in the 90s, man.
I think for me, like you just kind of hit the nail on the head with it. Like you're like switching slots and you're like toying with it in like the middle of your career, and it's like it's scary. It's like I want to be comfortable. Like I don't want to be like trying things out right now. Like I want to be dominating right now.
Yeah.
Like, and that's why like something as simple for me. Like I didn't have a slide step. I only had a high leg kick. And I was in AA without a slide step. I was getting run over all day long. Like I could not hold runners. I'm left-handed. I could not hold runners. And I just wasn't comfortable doing a slide step. That's just something simple like that. Yeah. So like changing arm slots, changing this and that. I can't even imagine what I would never even entertain that idea. That's why I said I did it in a bullpen just to see what would happen. But no way I would do that in a game. You got to do what feels right. It feels comfortable and makes it feel good.
Totally.
So, okay. So here I'm going to, that thing right there. Okay. I'm like, I can fix that now as a gosh, if you're 15 or older, I can tell you with movement why that doesn't work for you, why you're struggling with that. Okay.
That being.
Do you want to know?
That
Do you
being
want to know?
The slides, the leg kick slides thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. Like if you're 15, Dustin, at what point in your career do you want to know that?
Oh, I want to know. I would have wanted to know in the beginning when I wasn't introduced to me till like later in life, which. That obviously earlier is better, I think.
So I mean, totally. That's what I'm trying to get at is where's that line? How old do you have to be where you're just like, in your mind?
To learn a slide step.
Sure. Or just like to be well because it's like I'm wondering like how. Oh. Yeah, because that's a movement thing. So this is one of the things where you were talking about like if I cannot throw strikes, I'm not going to have a movement thing help me throw strikes, right? And so or I don't know, maybe I'm misstepping on this, but I'm trying to like understand how you think about that because I'm over here going I know exactly why you can't slide step. I don't even have to see you throw a ball. Like I already understand why that would be uncomfortable for you. Why you would need that leg kick. So do you want to learn how to do that? And then why or why not? Because I'm the guy that's like, hey, I'm Tiger Woods. I'm going to change my swing 17 times. I'm going to figure, like, that's where my head's at, because I'll do anything to be better.
I think for me, I was too stubborn to change away from what like the way I molded my motion. To go back to a lot of the stuff I say, that doesn't mean that I couldn't have thrown strikes and been really good at throwing it with a slide step. I think having a variety of ways to use your mechanics could still be super consistent, but I didn't train myself to do that. Like John was saying, like he was experimenting with different arm slots. Somebody could be a badass at that. Like they could be really good at like changing slots and painting corners. Like that takes a lot more work and dedication, though. It has to be your goal.
Have you seen the blitz balls, kids?
Yes.
That's where I think it's that's where I think it's like, oh, okay, because that explains movement. It explains, it over exaggerates movement on the pitch too. Yeah. And you can really start doing some crazy fun stuff. And we've talked about it, with the younger kids. If you set it up in a play situation where they're just trying to go after each other, you could just do so much more and really have kids fall in love with the game, because like you can't make a baseball do a 12-foot breaking ball and come down and nick the corner of the zone. Even the way that they have set up and decided what the strike zone in definitely seems almost more fair than when you play baseball, because of this other person that we all know is some form of bias, whether it's 51%, 49, or 90, 80, or he's a homer or whatever. But that person seems to be the match. And I know it flipped edge. Like there was one, did you see that one? I think it was on Cutternation the other day. The kid's completely inverted underneath it, throws like this nasty two-seam, and it like catches the backside corner of it. And then you see the hitter, he's like, oh, well, so yep. If you were to go back and you had a blitz ball, how do you think that would have affected, your thought process and dropping down? Because I remember seeing movement way more down there when I was doing it and being like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, well, just for what I played wiffle ball like it was like when it wasn't baseball, I was playing wiffle ball. So I was always playing with a wiffle ball. Not a blitz ball. That would have been so much more fun. But a wiffle ball, like the ones with the top, like just the holes.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the OG. Yeah.
I was like, obviously, I would mess around with that. We were just out there having fun. But like, I'm not sure if that would have changed the way I thought about it, because obviously, when you're doing that, you're just having fun and. Yeah, you're still throwing strikes. I guess I never really even thought about it like that, but it makes sense with all the stuff that I like to talk about. But when it came to put my pitching mechanics, that just wasn't the way I designed them. I didn't design them to be that variable. It was, nobody really does. I mean, until I didn't really start feeling like super comfortable till I stopped playing. Like I retired from baseball. Then I just started dicking around different mechanics. I'm like, I can do this, I can do that. Like this feels comfortable because, there's not as much pressure. And it's like then you kind of start getting comfortable. I think for me, it's just like more of like pressure really, and that's why I like to talk about pressure a lot. Pressure really changes the way you want to interact with your environment. It's like, all right, do I want to do this? I'm playing for a paycheck now. I got to make sure I'm performing. Do I want to throw a knuckleball here when I've never thrown a knuckleball before? Like, it's like it really limits what the fun aspect of it, I guess, if that makes sense. I don't know. What do you guys think?
All I can think right now is I want to know what you're like. I don't know a cool way to say this. I want to know your Enneagram and I want to know your Myers-Briggs stuff. I want to know your personality. Like, I want to know how you classify that, because what is so impressive is like, do you know those things, by the way?
I don't. I've heard of those things, but I don't know those things about myself.
Well, so because you are so true to what you want it to be. Like an 8th grade idea, like how romantic, seriously. Right. And the fact that it's just so unapologetic. That is so important for kids to see that part of it too. No matter anything else, that is such a huge part. Because if you can do that, if you can understand that at a young age, it's so valuable. It's weapon. Right? It's how you can defend yourself in these situations. And if somebody was going to break into that for you, they really had to get your trust. Right? And so that's so helpful. But not everybody's like that. So then, if the best version of me, right, would be to make sure that I understand all of these things, I put them all together, but then I actually do the work to decide, because it's me. It comes down to me being exactly what I feel like, right? And so How much is this epitomized in when John literally yesterday goes, when I'm throwing, he goes, can I say something? And I go, no. because I'm working. I remember what it felt like to feel good when I throw, and he doesn't know that. And so I need to like work on finding that feeling and then presenting that to him, and where he can present anytime he wants. Like he never lost it. And I had injuries. There are a lot of reasons why. He just gets it. He never stopped throwing. Great, for a long time ago. And that's all it is, So anyway, I don't know where I'm going with it. That's all I got to say about that.
You were telling everybody how good I was. Thank you. Appreciate that. No,
Dude, you're such a mama's boy. It's so funny. Oh my gosh. That's what I was saying. Personalities. I was saying, I told John this too. He's like, I need to know his number. So this is, I'll give my 2 cents on that one more time because he's a mama's boy and it's so funny. It's so funny. He's an only child. And these things, we'll bring it back to baseball somehow and like know your opponent. But I'm a 4. And one of the things on the Enneagram about the 4 is I think I'm the only one. Like that's part of the thing. So like there'll be, the joke is that there's 50 of us. There's 50 people in a room, and there's 10. Hey, 4s, stand up, and there's 10 of us, and we're all looking at each other like that's a poser. Like that's not a 4. Like they're like a 5 with a 4 wing or something like that. And it's just like this pretentious, funny, but it's so helpful because now I get to laugh at that part of my personality. Yeah. So because the bad part of that personality is like, oh, woe's me. Right? I'm the only one that has all of these crappy things happening to me. I'm alone in this. And so knowing that about my personality, when I go there, I can go, oh, whoa. And by the way, this is where the game's going. And Ken Ravizza was the beginning. And I'm this. And then so it's psychology and then understanding vision and vestibular systems better. That's where it's going to actually start making sense. Because what we're talking about right now, in my opinion, Dustin, is you're a human being. That's the first thing. And that is what you were so good at being, is you were exactly what you wanted to be. And you already said it. You got exactly where you thought you were going to get. Right? You know what I mean? Like the plan made it. And that's just, that's what's so cool. So the vision and that stuff, if you can't be balanced, I have terrible balance. I literally, I shouldn't say this publicly, but I literally have an ear infection right now. and I had tubes as a kid. I've ruptured my eardrums 3 times, and that connects me to my balance. So I close my eyes, I panic. That's a human thing first. That has nothing to do with me being a baseball player.
Right.
So anyway.
I agree.
Enneagram.
Was there a question in there or?
Yeah, no, that was it was all good balanced stuff. Love it.
I had something too, and then I got distracted. But
I called you a mama's boy. Sorry.
Yeah, there was something before that.
Well, I'll say in the batter's box. That's always my bring it back. Is the person, right? Yeah. So you look at John and you know what he is. You know what you thought of.
Yes, that's what it was. It was so. The part that I really find intriguing with Cass about that is there's a version of the game in this training, especially going to pitching coaches and stuff like that they try to change your strategy of the game. You being a unicorn and doing that, what were you trying to do? Like when you got, because I know I kind of evolved my strategy from down there when I was playing, because eventually you're like, well, when I throw the fastball, it gets smoked, right? So you start trying to figure out how to get it to move more and do all this crazy stuff. Well, take me through that. Like, what were you trying to spin? What was your feeling? What were your pitches like? Like describe, I know we can't, I wish we had a highlight reel of you just, beautiful camera, seeing all your pitches from there, but tell us from down there, what were you? 1, 2, 3, 4, what do we got?
Yeah. So, it's fastball, basically forcing fastball, held it with where's my ball here? I know. I held a wide grip. I didn't hold it close like that. I always held it wide. Mm-hmm. And I held it wide because I felt like it gave me more control. Because when you go to release a ball, if your fingers are close together, this is just the way my mind understood like positioning and balance. when the ball is coming out of your fingers and your hands like this or like that, it's like there's a potential that it might not be directly behind. So I always felt like my fingers were wider behind the ball. I could evenly have it come off my fingers. So that's why I always held a wide grip. Maybe that's why I threw 3 to 4 miles an hour slower than I should have. But and I do downplay my velocity a lot. Like I threw, I never threw hard, but I finished my career throwing 85 to 87. I always talk about myself throwing 80, 82.
Gas, by the way, from down there. Exactly. I got up to 86, and I was like, "Jeez!" Like Right. It was nowhere close either.
Right. So slurve, change up. Scouts would call it a slider or a slurve. It was like it would kind of get tossed up in the air. If you look at some of the guys sent me scouting reports on me, and then some would say slurve, some would say slider. That was my out pitch. That's something I kind of felt like I developed into high school before I even got into college. It's just something that felt really good. I had really late movement and had a good amount of movement with late depth. So those are the ones I threw, and I coming into college, I was 78 to 80, and then graduating college, I was 83 to 85, and then pro ball, I was 85, 87, 84, 86. But no, for me, it was always like, I don't know. I just had like this weird thought. Like even in college, I was like, all right, well, I have really good command. Like I can throw the ball like where I want to throw the ball, when I want to throw it there. And I felt like I was able to do that at like 17 years old. So I would think to myself, like, I was like, can major league pitchers do that? I would always think, like, can a major league pitcher throw it? Like, or is he that confident that he can put the ball where he wants that often? Because I was like, I don't feel like I can get much better at that ability. So then I was like, now I wouldn't say I was like that amazing, because what happens is now we're talking about location. How am I going to use that skill? And I feel like that's what for the rest of my career, from college through pro ball, I was constantly learning where and why to throw pitches to certain locations. Like if I kept throwing fastballs low and away at the knees, I would give up opposite field home runs, because that's just what would happen. The guys were just going to see it; they were going to hit it. So I had to learn how to utilize that skill. And
that's lefty on lefty, right? That's what you're saying. Lefty on lefty.
Oh, then lefty on lefty was just that. My pitching coach literally told me that when we made the switch. He's like, lefties are always outs. They're automatic outs. They get out. It's a no question, no brainer. You have to get them out every time. No walks, strike them out.
Okay. Well, I'm sorry. When you said fastball away at the knees, I wasn't sure if you were righty or lefty there. I wasn't sure what you were.
Mainly righties. I mean, lefties.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really start getting really any buzz back from lefties until pro ball throwing that pitch. Like, I mean, I just threw fastballs and sliders. If I got ahead in the count, I just threw sliders so they struck out. Like it was that's just what would happen with the lefties.
That's what I was hoping you were going to say. That's exactly what I was hoping you were going to say. So that thing right there, what you just said, right? You experimented, right? I did the same thing. Okay, I threw this pitch. Well, that didn't work. Someone told me that was going to work. It didn't work. Okay, let's try something else, right? And then when I was down there, it's immediate. I was told these rules by a pitching coach we're going to have on the podcast. Actually, Mike Clevenger's video of him throwing that banger slider that the catcher doesn't catch, that's at the junior college that my pitching coach is head coach at. So great spot over in Destin, Florida, Northwest Florida State. Shout out to you guys. But that being said, like he would be like, look, when you enter the game, you're going to throw 2 sliders in a row. Whoever the guy that comes in the game, you're probably going to be right on right or left on left. But just plan on throwing 2 breaking balls, and that's what your mindset, because that's what I'm going to call. If you throw the first one and it's bad, you got to commit to the second one. And so that's what I just And so when I came in, I was just like you. I was like, all right, I'm going to frisbee the crap out of this, and then sneak in a fastball, and hopefully he'll be late. And that kind of just started it, where it was like frisbee, fastball, and you'd try to. I don't know if I went fast pitch in my brain and started trying to figure out how to do a rise ball and everything from there. And it was impossible to me. I just couldn't. It ended up just being like some like weird floating thing in the middle that got smoked. And I'm like, this is just not, I don't think anybody can throw a raise ball from down here, So, well, that's great, man. I appreciate it. Your perspective right there, because it's going to help our audience understand, like, you don't have to throw fastballs. Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want to talk a little bit more about what's in the book?
Sure. So basically, the book kind of, that's another reason why I started it. Started Location Nation. Like I would go to look at hey, I want to find some pitchers with some great command, and you'd find them. You know who they are. But you couldn't find any information. I'm like, well, how did they get so good at that? Like, and nobody ever talks about how they get good at it. And I felt like that was like not good. Like, I feel like if I was younger and I wanted to take that route to like learn how to be more accurate, I would have loved to have like read a book from somebody who like maybe acquired the skill and like maybe the process they went through to do it. And I didn't have that was never there. And here I am at the end of my career, done pitching, and like there's still nothing out there where it's just totally dedicated towards like all these things that maybe I did through my whole like that a pitcher did through his whole life that helped them get really good at being accurate. So I figured like, hey, let's put a book together. Let me go back in and like file all these things I have in my brain and my life experience that helped me build my skill, as well as do a bunch of research on the brain and skill acquisition and ways that I felt like would make sense to like my experience, without being too biased. And I felt like I was able to kind of keep a good level-headed way to kind of put that information into writing. And we did everything from repetition to the strike zone to visualization, to bullpens to workload. It's all in there. And it's just something different, and it's definitely not the sexy thing that people want to buy. I'm not selling books off the shelves, but I just want to at least there needs to be something out there for people to find if they want to get better pitching command, and potentially do it a different way. And some people just might want to do it a different way, and that might be the minority, and that's okay. I'm totally cool with that.
Well, I think it's actually, could you go into a little bit, because it's extremely intriguing to me, because
I want to learn what you learned. Yeah, exactly.
Because just like, what could you sum it up for us? I know you don't want to give away the information completely in the book, but like I'm completely intrigued in this process because there's a lot of answers there.
Yeah. So, for me, I mean, it was all about repetition, but it was all about like repetition of the task. So this kind of goes back to what maybe we kind of debated a little bit, repetition of like, can you produce the same outcome? And so many people think that the physical movement or the way that they move, the identical ways in which they move are going to produce the outcome. And it's like when you think about your movement, you're not thinking about what you're trying to do. And kind of goes back to just the blitzball stuff. You can create the outcome you want. And what I mean by outcome is like if the target is a certain spot, you can hit that target over and over again with a variety of different mechanics. You could do that. Is that the goal of a baseball pitcher? Probably not. He's probably going to want to move in a way that he feels is comfortable and repetitive to him. Although we know when we look at these 3D models that we're not moving exactly the same way every single time. So but for me, it was just about repeating. So massive amounts of workload combined with constant awareness of what you're doing, creating that internal standard of excellence. So like, what are you trying to do? What is your constraint? Is it actually hitting the glove? Is it getting it to that side of the plate or further? Are you executing your goal? And for me, it was hitting the glove. Like I was hitting the glove. There was no doubt about it. Like I had to hit the glove. There was nothing else that could be, because I knew that 81 wouldn't work unless I hit the glove where it needed to go. So that was just a logical thought for me as a high schooler. I was like, I just need to do this task over and over and over again. What did the research, myelination. So I like to talk about myelination, the way the body and the way the brain kind of optimizes movement. So myelination essentially insulates the circuits of the way we pattern our movement. So while I'm not really thinking about my movement, your brain is still insulating everything you're doing when you move to perform that task. So if I threw a ball to the glove and I saw that I executed that outcome and I do it over and over again, my mind is going to myelinate. It's going to myelinate everything I did to perform that task. Similar to a way a bowler would bowl a ball to knock down 10 pins, or an axe thrower would to throw an axe at a target. They're not thinking about their movement. They're thinking about what they did to do the task. So the myelination process is a way that the mind is insulating that circuitry to be able to replicate and do it over and over again. It also can help improve the efficiency at which we do it. So that's why I talk about like balancing. Like if I spend 100 pitches just trying to hit the glove, by the 100th pitch, personally, I feel like I'm going to be moving better than the first pitch because I've done it over and over and over again. And the mind is actually, at least from the research I found, is going to insulate those movements. So while I'm focusing on hitting the glove, the mind is also insulating that movement. So I feel like by the end, I'm moving better. For what it's worth, this isn't just a day's worth of work. I was throwing 100, 200 pitch bullpens daily. That might seem a little bit absurd or reckless, but I didn't care. I didn't care about pitch counts. I didn't believe in any arbitrary amounts of pitches. I just knew the holistic side of it. I just was going to listen to my arm, what I felt like. And that might seem really strange as a high schooler, but that's just the way I felt like I wanted to go about my business. So lots of repetition, lots of task, and the brain is like what really helps you do most of it. I mean, I'm not sure if that was enough or not enough, but I could continue.
No, I think it was great. I got a lot there.
I have a question. The myelinations part, I don't even know if I know how to ask the question right, but it's like, is there some sort of then you're basically saying you can't be focusing on these movements anyway, because you should be focusing on the task, right? So your body's accomplishing this task. Isn't there then a summation of that? Okay, your body goes, oh, that was me holding the bowling ball and I made it go to the pin. Like, I just thought about putting my fingers in the bowling ball and walking and throwing. Like, I'm curious about what is the you know what I mean? Like, what's the summation?
Yeah, so I guess maybe the part you're really trying to ask is like, well, how are you making adjustments? And for me, the only mechanical adjustment would be your release point. So your hand position. So we kind of briefly touched on that in the debate. You know, if I want to go through 20 different sets of pitching mechanics, I mean, over the top, back and forth, whatever, behind my back, I'm going to try to pay attention to where my hand is and then have to be super aware of the target and if I executed the task. So I'm not sure if that's exactly what you're aiming for, but the awareness aspect, like where the ball went, tying it back to where I released the ball and figuring out problem solving that task. If I'm trying to hit the same spot over and over and over again, you got to continue to problem solve that. And I feel like the release point is maybe what you're mainly asking for. So you're myelinating consistency in the release point.
Yeah,
we say it almost the same way too, by the way.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I think is what I'm trying to get at is I think that's what we have in common. I think the awareness of the hand, and I think it's my biggest flaw in the over reliance on creating the other movements, because I know that the movements will make getting the hand where it needs to be easier, right? Like, I know that their inconsistency of like when their foot hits the ground, how their foot hits the ground, and how that makes it hard to get the hand to the release point consistently, right? Like, so when I think of, I literally have no idea how you threw, but I probably have a really good guess of how you move to do what you're talking about, right? So you probably didn't have a ton of backside move because you had the leg kick. And so you created great angles, created a lot of momentum into foot strike, which would give you a velo, right? And you probably stopped really well on your front side and timed that well. And you could do that over and over and over again. And the reason why that makes a lot of sense is because that actually doesn't take a lot of calories. We've talked about this. So if you're trying to do what you're doing, I don't know, Dustin, does that, I mean, maybe you didn't have a strong front side, but like, is that a fair assessment of like what you probably did?
Yeah, that's actually pretty good, actually. I mean, my lead leg would lock out. Like, it would lock out lock. It would lock to release. And I didn't, my pitching coach did not teach me that. Like, he didn't teach me to do that. And I never really paid attention to that until I started seeing still shots. I'm like, dang, like my leg's like friggin' hyperextended here. And I'm like, I'm so slot. That was interesting for me. And again, honestly, I felt like my movement optimized itself through the repetition. So while I was learning to do stuff, all this stuff on camera, like I was saying in the beginning, like going back, looking at this, I mean, I look like trash. Like, I look like the most robotic, trash looking mechanics ever trying to create this aesthetic. But I didn't really start finding myself until I realized I was complacent with what I thought I created mechanically. I was like, all right, I can throw the ball. I can throw it at a pace I'm comfortable with. I'm going to leave it alone. And I want my movement to be unconscious. Like, I don't want to think about it. I don't want to have to think about my movement. And I think that should be a goal of any pitcher. Nobody should have to think about their movement. That's not fun. That is not fun. You just want to go out there and pitch. Blitz ballers aren't thinking about X, Y, and Z. Like, they're just out there throwing the ball. So that's what most fun part for me was like working on throwing it where I wanted it to go. Like I want to keep doing this. I don't want to have to focus on my mechanics. So over those hundreds of pitches, I feel like my body just, the way I was physically designed, just started optimizing the most efficient way. And it's like we won't give the players that type of opportunity. It's like save your bullets. Don't throw too much. Don't do this. Can't do that. It's like you never. I mean, but it sounds reckless for me to say, hey, all right, let's build your workload to 250 pitches today. Like that sounds reckless too. But the Japanese do it. They don't have any arm injuries. Not until they're introduced to our way of life, at least. So I don't know. I just have a different. I don't know. It just seems.
No,
I think you're directly in line with us, by the way. I don't think different. I think you're with a lot more people than you think. There's so many more people. There are so many more people than you think that think like that, man. It's just we have to create our own little coalition over here and be like, hey, the game is the important part. Like, right? You know, we bring unicorns in for a reason, right? Bring this. You know, Cass and I are talking about it. Who was it, Cass, that said that the 88-mile-an-hour pitch is coming back? I don't remember
Wagner.
Wagner. Brett Wagner, right? And so he was. So this is our version of the location part, right? Of what three-dimensional pitching kind of is what we call it right here, where we have our fast, slow stuff, speeding up, slowing down, up, down, in and out, everything from there. And then that was the visual velocity component that you beat us to. That we were on the same page because it sounds like it literally sounds like we all work together right now because that's we're the feel to the hand and everything. And so, oh my God, I forgot where I was going with that. But so the interesting part that I find in all of this is it just comes back to play, and blitzball pitching coaches as a minor league. I just find that blitzballs could be so much better than T-ball and minor league ball. And like, cause there's a certain point of the game and it's like, I told family members recently, they're like, oh, we're going to get them ready for T-ball. I go, don't do it. I'm sorry. Just don't do it. It's a waste of your time. It's a waste of your time. If you want to do the photo, go buy the gear and take it in the backyard. Like he's not going to have fun. I'm dead serious. And then, cause the game, it's just too slow, right? Yeah, for sure.
The same thing. You know what I mean? Having things appropriate at the beginning, right? So, the game, you shouldn't play catch with your kid as the first way that they throw, and you don't, right? The kid's 2 or 3 and they're chucking things around. Like they're just picking up vegetables and throwing them across, right? And then it's like, and then all of a sudden we buy them their first glove and now they should be able to catch it and we're supposed to have a catch. It's like, that's crazy. That's outrageous, right? So like, and so that's what's so fun. We have a 6-year-old that trained for his first time last week. And he had an older sister that was in our facility and that's how he knows about us. But this created some big conversation, blah, blah, blah. But the point is the kid is scared as soon as we get away from the target, right? So we have him right next to the target and he can see himself in the radar gun. This is every 6, 7, 8-year-old that hasn't been around people throwing hard, right? And they don't know how to throw hard. They've never been allowed to throw hard because it's always this game of catch, right? So every single person has to go through this anxiety, just like seeing 90 miles an hour for the first time. It's just a learning curve, and so the sooner the younger you are, where you can throw 200 pitches and stay focused enough to actually throw 200 pitches, do it. Like, of course, do that. And I always make this argument about young kids and running guns. Like, look at every little 8-year-old boy. If you don't tell them what to do, they're gonna be jumping off the house. Like, they don't care. And they're not going to die. They're probably going to break something. But if you let them do that, if you actually let little boys run around and do what they would do, they would constantly be kind of getting hurt, but they would become little monkeys. And I mean that in the most sincere, genuine way, right? Because they're built, that's what they're good at that age, right? And so that's the time to let them throw, not 200 pitches in the game, like 200 pitches in the blitzball game, in the game with dad. Like, this is how you build a great relationship with your kid. Have enough patience to get 90 minutes into a game with them. Like, you know what I mean? And that's all the work that you know what I mean? The implications are huge. Go ahead.
No, I love that. I think it's great. And just to clarify, the pitch counts, the absurd pitch counts that I was doing, they weren't 100% effort. I want
very low effort.
It was more like, listen, I want to go out and I just want to throw a lot. That's all I wanted to do is just throw. Like, I can't throw a lot if I'm maxing out my intensity every time. Like, that's not going to allow me to work as much as I want to work. Like, I want to work for 2 hours on this. Like, what do I got to do that? And it's like, obviously you got to bring your intensity down. God forbid you say that today. God forbid you say that on social media. I mean, I just feel like there's value there. Like, let's just
I love it.
Chance to work through their mechanics a lot and see what they can find.
Dude, I want to steal that. Just like, we need to have a day, like a 200 throw day. Like,
Dustin, I threw 129 pitches yesterday, and I'm fine. By the way, at max effort. Right?
That would be the goal. That would be the goal, though.
But
right.
Okay, so that idea, like, we've played around with this idea a lot, and I think that if you compare this to like a long toss and put those in the same camp, and the consistency is you're constantly throwing, right? So you're constantly throwing, so you're staying warmed up, you're staying where you're at. I think where the issues are the stop go, right? If you do the innings, I go over here and sit and then get human rain delayed because we scored 8 runs, and then come back, and then now I'm like, ugh, right? And so I started doing plyos in between innings and stuff when I was doing stuff. But when I just go, I just literally feel like I'm long tossing, and it's just one after another. And now that we have the radar gun there, the radar gun tells me when I'm tired. When I can't get back up to the speed that I'm at and I'm dropping 3-4 miles an hour, okay, I know I can't. You know what I mean? Like, I was 88, 91 yesterday for a long time, and then I was like, couldn't get over 87. I'm like, all right, well, that's probably the end of the power. That's probably where it is.
It's kind of cool. It's kind of cool to learn that about yourself, though, right? You're like, man, I feel like I'm starting to break down, and then you can get back like that intuitive thing. Like, you're learning about like, what you can and can't do, your limitations.
Exactly. Did you ever have that at all when you were? Go ahead, Cass.
I just, because I'm going to pump you up, so let me. Because this is what John Sintez is such a good example of how he exists. He exists, still existing. He could still be a number 5 starter on a big league team now. And like, I will fight anybody for that. Because any team would love him as that position. Like, it's a no-brainer. And it's not even close. He's not even close to having that conversation. Do you know what I mean? They have no idea. And that's okay. And I know that he's way over it. But the point is that, like, just seeing the Vance Worley coming into our place, like, maybe I just don't get it. I don't know. But, like, the fact that the conversations around the people that I know around the game are just so like, what's going on here? Well, how are people, understanding talent? Because then I see the literally the kids in the minors. You're talking about a lifelong journey of becoming a pitcher, a lifelong journey. And so I think they really don't understand talent the way they need to, because yes, it does. It's a young game, but it's an old game too. And you're taking away teams. Like what? There's too many things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. So anyway, I'm just going there because it's, what do we got to do to keep the conversation going? Like, why isn't this conversation more obvious? You know what I mean? It's like, you can write a book about it and people don't even know to pick it up.
That's okay. And I'm okay with that, because that's how I live my life. Like, I was like, listen, I'm going to throw sidearm. I'm going to throw the speed I want. And I'm going to dominate. Like, that's just the way my mind works. So, like, I'm out there just to help the guys that are looking for it. For me,
for sure.
I mean, but on social media, for whatever, like, people seem to like it. People seem to like the stuff I put out. It's interesting. It's like, I'm not trying to be bipolar. It's just like, people seem to maybe see some value in whatever it is I put out. But I think it's really important to make the idea or premise of the talent evaluation or development it more balanced. Like, it's not one or the other. And I'm trying to do the best I can to continue to research my process of, like, myelination, like, and how that could help you optimize. And optimizing movement is ultimately what any pitcher should want to do. A guy who eventually throws 100 or a guy whose max intensity only allows him to throw 85? Like, that should be everyone's goal. So I think it's just the way that I put it out definitely doesn't come off the way I want it to. And I think it's just trying to find that language and terminology that makes sense to everybody without sounding too like scaly. Like, it's like this or that. And I definitely come off like I know I don't come off the way I mean to a lot of times.
I disagree completely.
I agree.
I think that the argument that you're making is exactly what it should be happening. I don't think you should censor yourself or do anything, because we're directly in line with everything that you said, because it comes back to the game.
That's not the only reason why you should, but that's a reason.
No, for sure. But I'm just saying, I want to support this. Send us the information on the book. I would love to help you get that stuff out there, because that's those stories. It's the stories that we're missing in this stuff. You don't hear about Greg Maddux, how long it took him to develop that ridiculous two-seam. How long did it take him? What you just woke up one day and your ball ran 3 feet to the right? What? You know what I mean? And then knowing how much effort that I put into really developing my cutter and my other pitches is it's a constant idea and struggle to find the consistent, one thing that I think is very hard to do is, all of these baseballs that happen with stuff with high school and college, right? The baseballs that you throw are different almost at every ballpark. So if you get a diamond baseball and then you go play with a Wilson baseball and you're on the road, that ball's not going to spin the same. And there's a learning curve that goes into that, but everybody thinks this game is easy and you can just throw the ball where you want. And we look at Cole, for example, right? I posted this video for just absolute bait, and you would probably love it, but it was on purpose, because I'm a location effort guy. I get it. It's executing the pitch. But also I do know the faster you throw, the more room from error you have. But you can also make the same argument for the greater speed range that you have, the more room for error you have too, right? So that's why when you hear these big leaguers talking about, well, he's just hard. His fastball's hard, his slider's hard. So I don't really have to make a big adjustment or really sit on that, because it's just I know the speed is what's going to be, and it's either going to be here or there, and so they kind of figured out the game. And so your perspective and your idea of it is Cole setups fastball away to Cho for the Rays in the playoffs, and pull yank all the way inside corner, almost hits the umpire in the knee. And Cho is sitting fastball away, but it's inside, and you can see him cheating because it's 100, and he swings completely over the top of it by a foot, and he's nowhere close. And I go, what about location? What are we talking about? And so everybody went nuts. Oh, I'm like, oh, you don't understand. If he'd have hit a spot and the guy guessed right, maybe it would have been a foul ball or whatever. But because he just, on this one particular one, closed his eyes, lost, pull yanked it, he still threw it over the plate, and it worked, right?
But this is also Dustin already talked about it. You can also have a different objective in that moment, right? And so John the other day, he had a ton of arm side movement, and so he was having his catcher set up there as a visual of where it's gonna go. Do you know what I mean? I'm throwing it at that, but I know it's gonna run here, and he's not thinking about it. He's just, pick that one, press that button, and then go throw it. And that can't happen if you're stuck on I don't want my ball to move like that, and then changing it, right? That's how my ball is moving today. This is how I'm, same thing at the golf course.
Right. Well, that's funny, because I one of the chapters in my book is focal points. It's that exact thing. There's a whole chapter dedicated to what you're picking up visually.
Just read the book.
Yeah. But you're right. The ball might, with what you just said, the seams might be different. The moisture might be different in the air. It's making the ball do different. Maybe you got a headwind. Some people are I don't want to pitch with a headwind. The guy's going to freaking hit it over the fence. Dude, throw a freaking change up or breaking ball. It's going to move more.
Cutternation with the headwind, bro. I'm not going to lie.
There's so many more elements to the game that,
knuckleball.
Oh. Yeah. Wasn't that a thing with Wakefield? I want to say there was a day in Boston, and it was a swirly day there, and he was throwing knuckleballs, and I think it was one of the days he almost threw a no-hitter or something.
Dude, he's throwing it over there.
Yeah,
he's
he had a nasty knuckleball anyway, but no, it's funny because I felt like I commanded at a high rate personally, but I still miss. I missed and got away with plenty of strikeouts. that happens. But the thing is, like, when you miss that knowledge you talked about, like the effective velocity and like where the ball went, like you got to pay attention to what happened. Like it'll give you more information. A lot of times I know I would miss more when I really tried to like ramp intensity and like, all right, I'm going to really try to like add that extra 2% and like the ball, like it just didn't feel it the same way. And sometimes the percentage probably was still higher of it going where it needed to go than somebody who didn't have that type of feel, but I would still miss. Like nobody's perfect.
Yeah.
It's impossible to be perfect. But analyzing.
It's overrated too.
So yeah. I don't know. There's just so many things to talk about. I don't know, it's crazy.
Yeah, I agree. It's fun though, because that's where this debate right here, this thing is like, well, just like we in our debate, right? That question that they asked us, we were like, well, that's not even like, that's not the story. That's not the right question to be asking here, right? Like what you could have just you could have basically said like, well, who's more valuable, pitcher or hitter? And we'd have been like I don't even understand what that question is. You know?
Right, but I think, I know that there were some also conversations about why some people might not want to do it. And I think it's because you can actually do this as an educational thing. Like I think there's so many people that want to just like, public radio it. And that actually, I think there's a big audience for that. And I think that's the point, right? I mean, you see it with the ABCA podcast and I'm just, there's more room for things like that, right? Yeah. And the Jonathan Gellner's Ahead of the Curve, right? But he does a lot of pitching coaches, just actual on the field coaches. Do you know what I mean? And that's great too. But there's a lot of private entities like us that aren't that big, that's good stuff. I mean, my buddy Garrett Retka, like this dude he's one of the best hitting minds in the country. And he has like 12 clients and is an assistant hitting coach. Like, find these people, right? There's such a market for these stories. So for whatever it's worth, man, like the things that I hear in your story, like it's fun from a geeky standpoint to like dig in and out of what we think and what we don't think. But like my biggest takeaway on every level is just like how genuine your experience has been. And that's so cool. And that's so valuable. Every person in the world needs to hear that because it's just it's not common.
It's good to hear you say that because it's like I talk about myself on Twitter sometimes. And it's like that's just my experience though. Like because I feel like I can't just use my experience because it's my experience.
That's where the value is though.
I know, but you know what I mean? Like
no, I agree.
Yes, I
agree. Yeah, for sure.
Obviously, it was a unicorn experience. I did it by design, but it was the way it was my plan. Like I blueprinted it the way I wanted.
And
all credit to you, bro. It worked. All credit to you.
Away.
Look, yeah, exactly. Look at the career, the whole thing, right?
It's I mean, again, and that's what I wanted it to do, but it's just.
Let me say it another way, and maybe
do that.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
Well, let me make another example quick, and maybe you'll be more at peace of it, right? So, because it sounds like you're as much of a fanboy as we are, okay? When somebody like Nolan Ryan goes on MLB Network and he doesn't talk mechanics and he talks about his experiences and the pitches and maybe Robin Ventura or all those things, that idea, the story, that's what you're talking about. And so, like, that's the information we want to hear. Right? For some people like Cass would much rather go into the movement side of things if they had a preference of what's going on. But you and I are talking about the autopilot and the other stuff that allow us to approach the game, which should be the ultimate goal, right? For everything. So, I say just keep going, man, because your experience of the whole thing, it's a lost art. I mean, the guy, like you said, we're the same age. I had a Leo Mazzoni pitching book. It was the only guy my dad found like that. And my dad's not a baseball guy, and we got it at like the Books A Million or whatever it was. Shout out to Closed Out Books A Million. But I just remember that, and I read all the pages, and they had the photos of all the pitches and the grips and all the workouts that he had the guys do and everything. And I just remember being like, "This is unbelievable. This is this guy's brain." And I was like, I think I was like 12 or 13 years old, and I was just geeking out about it. But there was no community to share that with. Like, go talk to that with my little league teammate, and he's like, "What are you talking about? Who's Leo Mazzoni?"
Yeah,
I don't even. Is he a transformer? Like, I don't know, you know.
I think you're right. Like I created what I'm doing because it is kind of niche, and like, but the way the world is now, like, I mean, if I was growing up, like my model pitcher was Mike Venafro. I'm not sure if you've heard that name.
Yes,
His name was Moneyball, but funny story. When I finished my career, he was a pro scout for San Diego, and I was in my last week with San Diego before they released me from AAA camp, and I was finishing up my throwing session, and this guy was standing by the fence. He's like, "Hey, Dustin, come here." I was like, okay, whatever. I figured it was like a fan or something. I don't know. He's like, how you doing? I'm Mike Venafro. I heard a lot about you. He's like, it's pretty cool that you're out here, you're throwing a sidearm. I was like, I love you. I was like, because he was like 5'10", lefty sidearm, 85 miles an hour, big leagues. Like, he was the guy I wanted to try to be like. And again, it's just, if he, like, let's say he like wrote a book or something when he was a big, like, I would have been all over that. Like, that would have been entirely incredibly niche, but like, you have things like Sidearm Nation now, like Jeff Friedman created Sidearm Nation. Like, people want to learn about experiences. I think it's just, for me, it's getting over that hurdle of talking more about my own personal experience to get us through to more people. I don't know.
Well, it sounds like we're doing more podcasts. That's what it sounds like. That's where I think it is, though. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, I'm a big Joe Rogan fan, and every time he has someone intriguing on that and I can pick up a nugget or wherever it is, I'm just like, this is exactly what baseball should do. That's what I love Bauer's Watch Momentum stuff, because it's like, it's from the guy. It's not from his PR or his agent. It's literally, he's just having a conversation with his agent or whoever he's talking to. And he's like, he had a CEO of some accounting cloud-based service of the guy, and they had a business conversation. I was just listening to him. This guy's talking about venture capitalists and getting investors and all this stuff. And I'm like, Bauer's going like, I don't even know what you're saying. And I'm like, I'm with Bauer. I'm like, dude, you raised like the imagining $92 million as like an actual thing to my brain. It's like, I don't even know what that is. I have no idea what that means at all. And that's what Bauer was saying too. And so I totally resonate, because there's different information for me. At least I know how I learn. And when I hear it, I see it, and somebody's telling their experience and their story, and it just validates so much more. And so it means a lot. So don't stop, to keep it going.
Yeah, it means a lot to hear you guys say it too. It's just it's good, because again, you guys are in the same type of line of work, and we get the meet on the debate, and no, it's good. It's good to hear that. And you guys are doing.
I do have another question. I know we're going to wrap it up a little bit, but do you have like one pitch that you can remember from your pro career where it was like, oh, I executed that perfectly?
Ooh.
I'll give you an example of mine. I remember being I got brought in Mazatlan, and the highest level I got to in winter ball was in the Pacific League over there, and I loved it. It was so much fun. The best team I had ever been on. I threw all the time, and I remember I was first out of the pen with Sergio Romo and Oliver Perez behind me, and so it was so much fun to literally be like, I would see it happen in the fifth or sixth. They'd bring this lefty in, he wouldn't do his job, he'd give up a double, and they're like, I'd be like, all right, here we go. I know it's happening. But I just think you remember being like Game 5 facing Michael Bourgeois is his name. And I run him to a 3-2 count, and I'd been saving this front door cutter. And I'm like, all right, this is either you walk him and they tie the game, or you go down by your best pitch. So here it is, And I remember 2 outs, bases loaded, runners moving, and I'm just got to get my best one. And I just nasty 84 off the elbow, dropped it right in, threw it up. God, I was so jacked. We were on the road in Mazatlan. We ended up winning the game. I think I threw like an inning and a third, right? But that experience, right? Yeah. Like I remember, so you said something earlier, and this is where I like the explain the whole thing, right? Being able to go to that spot with all of the senses, like you were talking about. Like I remember it was humid, it was hot. I remember it was weirdly windy and hot. Like there was this weird humid thing going there. There was a hazy light. I remember a giant backstop. And then I also remember the concert level music that never stopped. And Michael Bourgeois was a change of pace because he was an American dude. And he walked out to Dre. And I love Dre. Right? So like when I'm warming up, they're playing his song, right? And it's Forgot About Dre. And I'm like, this dude has no idea how excited I am right now that this song is on. I am in this situation. Like you can't build that. Like you can't just dream it up. It's just like, this is where it is, right? This is what's going to happen. And so that is just, I'll never forget that. And so I like to take that experience to our kids there and just be like, this is going to happen to you. I know nobody's going to talk about it, but you're going to be put in a weird bases loaded 2-out situation. And how do you handle it? Have you even processed this?
Yes. So I guess I have one. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to give it as exuberantly as you did, but I could try.
Let's do it.
So there's one pitch, one play that I'll probably forever remember, and it was my first week in pro ball. So it was my first week with Winnipeg Goldeyes. So hopefully many people are familiar with. There's a lot of big leaguers that play in independent.
I had 3 starts with them. Yes.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah.
You definitely get it. So this was my first week coming from a small college. So I was just still getting comfortable with the crowds and the noise and the people and the environment. And for me, we were down in Kansas City. So we were playing against the T-Bones. And for anybody who remembers the name of Calvin Pickering, he was a big leaguer for the Orioles. Played there for 2-3 seasons. Pretty good. Big left-handed hitter, power guy. I remember watching him play at Camden Yards when I was growing up. So it was a little bit, it's just those types of juices are flowing. Anyway, he's playing for Kansas City. I am what I am. I'm a lefty that needs to get lefties out. And he hit 2 home runs in the game. So he was already 2 for 3 with 2 bombs. And it was towards the end of the game. And the game was tied with bases loaded with 2 outs. And I needed to come in. I was brought into the game to face Calvin Pickering. Now I was still kind of on the cusp of just trying to prove myself to be on this team, coming from where I did. And it was a hot night. It was a tight situation. The crowd was packed. It was a tight, it was a tie game. So the bases were loaded with 2 outs. You already hit 2 bombs, and we get to a full count. And no matter how many pitches you throw in life, when you feel like your command is good, I'm not sure anything prepares you for the type of those types of pitches. The way you feel, you can't. It's incredibly hard to recreate those feelings.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be a fastball away. I missed. Fastball in. Swung through it. Strike 3. Got out of the inning. We went on to win the game, and that was probably one of the biggest pitches I made early on in my pro career, and it was a miss. And I'm not afraid to say that because we got struck out. So,
well, we know you have a late life with a lot of run from down there, so I'm sure. Yeah, exactly.
On his hands, it wasn't a strike; it was out of the strike, so he still swung at it. But it was a strikeout, so I'll take it.
Yeah, why wouldn't you? Why didn't you? But I just think those stories are just.
Yeah, they're
very important to relay to some of the kids, because if you can have them start latching onto those, there's a lot of memory building there that you can do. Because I remember later on in playoffs coming into another weird situation and being like, here we go again. This is almost the same thing, And so you just get more comfortable in that fire, right in the trenches where it's like, well, I did this last night. I did this the night before. Like, it's almost the same hitter. You know what I mean? I'm sure in your situation you are such a niche guy that you're coming in facing a big donkey lefty, and you're gonna just here you go, right? So
as time goes on, you get more comfortable, but nothing prepared me for that first one. It's hard.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but, that's funny that the first one I haven't thought about that one. The first one's good because I don't know, I've had a bunch of really fun moments like that. I think my first in winter ball was against Culiacan. And so before I go down to winter ball to that big league down there, I start doing more research, and you start finding out the history of all these programs and these the Pacific League's been going on for 85 years or something like that. And the way Mexico does their sports is it's amazing. LeBron's thing of Nike thing in Cleveland, every city has the same version of that for all of their sports. All of their billboards are all sports, and they're all about the faces and the guys. And there's a guy named Sal Soto. I'll never forget him, but he's the face of 2 different franchises for summer and winter. And I remember when I first met him, he was standing in front of his advertisement at the ballpark. And I was like, yeah, that's you. You're the guy. You're this guy. You are 100-foot version of yourself, right? And he was a 6'5" guy, but what I really find unique about him is he just retired at 43 this year, and he's never not played in the Mexican League since he was 17. And so I saw him turn on 100 multiple times. And then I remember being like, dude, how do you do this? And he goes, I've been seeing 100 since I was 17, 18 years old. Like, just that's the only level that I've ever played. It's just in the summer, the guys throw 90 plus, and in the winter, guys throw 95 to 100. And so it's just, I just go back and forth. I'm like, that's crazy. And so, like, he had multiple sick houses in each location because he was the guy in Aguas Calientes and he was the guy in Los Mochis. And it's like, oh, you and your family just pick up and go 6 months here and then 6 months here. And all you've done for 25 years is do that. So that's crazy. But see, like those, it's information, you know?
Those stories, man. They mean something. It's good.
Cool. Well, look, we've been crushing it. Hour 25. I think that's probably enough for us today. You know, I don't want to hit you, but I appreciate it. Once you, so let's promote the book. Let's get you out there. The website, the new podcast. We're probably going to start after this. No, just kidding. All of your stuff.
Oh, he froze.
Oh, he did.
It's Location Nation with a K on Instagram or on Twitter. That's where he does most of his content. I don't even know what his Instagram is.
I know. Okay, so it's.
We have all of his contact information. It's Dustin Pease. It's Location Nation. He's easy to contact, really.
Yeah. Oh, there you go.
Okay.
There we go.
Not sure what happened. Not on episode 92 like you guys, but we're on episode 8 with the Location Nation podcast. You can find that pretty much anywhere. We just got on the iHeart, Stitcher. The host knows more than me with where we can be found, but just type in Location Nation podcast, all one word. And then you guys can find me on Location Nation with a K, on Twitter, Instagram. And I do have a Facebook page and a YouTube page. They need some more attention, but most of my stuff is coming through Twitter. And you can find my book at www.locationnation.com. It's right there on the front page. You can kind of find your way over to it. There's some information on it there. And that's basically 40 pages dedicated to acquiring higher rate of skill pitching command. And the back end of the e-guide is a 6-week throwing program. So you guys can find some stuff there on that, and look forward to communicating and engaging with you guys more.
Yeah, definitely. This is we
Thanks,
gotta get our round table of these people. I mean, there's too much fun stories and things to get into. You know.
I agree. I gotta send you guys a couple shirts if you send me a hat.
Oh, dude, for sure. Yeah, we'll do full on trade. So
we'll exchange the addresses. Yeah.
100%. All right, guys, we'll appreciate it. Go check out Dustin, give him a follow, and listen to the podcast. I know I just went to subscribe right now. So appreciate it. Thanks, man. You have a good one. You guys don't forget to subscribe. Please like and follow our podcast too, and how we're growing. I love it. Appreciate it again.
Thanks for having me on, guys.
Yeah.